Hey everyone. Let's face it, trying to understand blood sugar can sometimes feel like you're lost in a medical textbook.
It really can.
So today we're doing a deep dive into blood sugar. We're cutting through the noise and zeroing in on the need-to-know information from this podcast excerpt you sent.
I'm excited to break it all down. As a certified diabetes educator, I love making these topics clear and simple.
Perfect. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly are we talking about when we say blood sugar? What is it and why is it so important?
You got it. Blood sugar, or glucose, it's our body's primary fuel source. It's like the energy drink that keeps every single cell going.
Gotcha.
So think of it like this. You know how your car needs just the right amount of gas to run smoothly? Too much and it overflows, too little and it stalls. Your body's the same way with blood sugar. We need those levels to stay within a healthy range.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about what happens when things get out of balance, starting with high blood sugar. This excerpt uses the term hyperglycemia, which, side note, might be my least favorite word in the English language.
Definitely a mouthful.
But anyway, this excerpt mentions things like constant thirst, frequent urination, increased fatigue, even blurred vision. Like your body is waving its hands in the air for attention. What's going on inside to cause these red flags?
Yeah, those are definitely some classic signs that your blood sugar's too high. Essentially, it's like your body's dealing with a sugar rush and overloaded glucose, and your body's going, whoa, too much. Time to flush this excess out. Your kidneys especially are working overtime trying to filter out the extra glucose, and that's a big part of what's causing those bathroom breaks and the thirst.
So it's really all connected.
Absolutely.
And the excerpt also brings up the potential long-term problems high blood sugar can cause if it's not managed, like an increased risk for heart disease, nerve damage, even eye problems, which is a little scary. What's the deal with those long-term complications?
Yeah, you're right. That's why it's so important to keep blood sugar in check. It's not just about how you feel right now. Chronically high blood sugar, over time, it's like wear and tear on your blood vessels and nerves.
Oh.
It's like imagine driving your car with the emergency brake on a little bit, all the time.
Oh, I see.
Eventually, it's going to cause some serious damage. That's why it's a big deal, even if you don't feel any symptoms.
Okay, that is a really good analogy. I'm definitely going to be thinking about that next time I'm tempted to eat an entire pan of brownies by myself.
Exactly.
So on the flip side, let's talk about low blood sugar. Hypoglycemia. The excerpt mentions how this can be a pretty big deal because it can hit really quickly. We're talking symptoms like shakiness, dizziness, even confusion. Why is low blood sugar such a sudden, intense experience for people?
So think of it this way. With low blood sugar, your body's basically running on empty.
Okay.
Like imagine trying to drive your car with the gas light blinking for way too long. You're going to sputter and stall.
Makes sense.
And our brain especially, it's a real glucose hog. It needs a constant supply to function properly.
It's amazing how much our bodies need glucose, especially our brains.
It's credible, right?
So thinking about folks who are managing diabetes, the excerpt mentions how their medications, while super important, can sometimes cause their blood sugar to dip too low.
Absolutely. That's why it's super important for people with diabetes to be extra mindful of their blood sugar and work closely with their doctor or diabetes educator to get their medication just right.
So before we wrap up, this excerpt touches on a few general strategies for keeping those blood sugar levels balanced. For high blood sugar, they talk about cutting back on foods and drinks that are loaded with sugar, which seems like a no-brainer.
Right.
And for low blood sugar, they mention having a quick snack on hand, something with some carbohydrates to give your body a boost.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on those tips?
I think they're great starting points. But one thing I always emphasize is that managing blood sugar isn't one size fits all. We're not all walking the same path, right?
Right.
You got to figure out what works best for you with the guidance of a healthcare professional, of course.
Okay, I love that. So before we sign off for today, let's recap the key takeaways since we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
We started with the basics, what blood sugar is, why it's so important to keep it in check.
Right.
We talked about the warning signs of both high and low blood sugar and how those fluctuations can affect our bodies over time. And finally, the importance of having those open conversations with healthcare professionals.
You got it.
So listener, as you go about your day, here's something to think about. What's one small change you can make to support your well-being? Until next time, stay curious and keep the conversation going.